What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the No Reserves podcast. I'm your host, Ren, as always, here with Adam and Angelo. We have in my opinion, fun episode for you. I think this was by far the most fun I've had yet in researching a topic. I don't know about you guys, but
It
this
definitely
one
was the
was a
most fun for
lot of
me.
fun.
Spending a week watching teams that I don't usually watch was fun.
I mean, you should be doing that anyway. You're part of a basketball-centric podcast. Watch all the games.
I agree now, but I'm saying before this, I never really sat down and watched teams like the Pacers, unless they was playing the Hawks, which we'll get to the Hawks later, Angela.
The basic principle of this episode, it's actually a two-part episode. We're doing one part this week, one part next week. We're basically going through, with it being the holiday season, and taking every team in the NBA and giving them a Christmas wish list. We're starting this week with the Eastern Conference. We spun a wheel, randomly gave each other teams, and we've each researched one. So we're going to come through one by one, give the others a chance to rebuttal against our personal lists for that team, and then next week we're going to do the Western Conference.
Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and move in then to the question of the day.
Yeah, so the question of the week, as we're happily calling it, is just it's just a fun way for us to get our brains warmed up. Adam asks a completely unrelated question to basketball, and we have to come up with an answer, and a lot of the times it's going to be really stupid and pointless, but we're going to do it anyway.
Okay, I was waiting on Angela to say something, but anyway. Okay, so for the question of the week, my question is going to be, what is the most useless piece of information that you know?
Ooh, that's really hard. I know a lot of stupid things that nobody ever needs to know.
You can hear the temperature of water.
What?
You can hear the temperature of water as it's being poured.
Holy crap, you're right. Can I double down on the most useless fact? Because that is pointless, but hot water sounds different.
Yes, it does.
No, I don't have anything more useless than that. That is now the most useless thing in my brain. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime, buddy.
Well, with that out of the way,
agreed.
I'm still kind of lost. The NBA this week announced we're changing the names of the awards. I don't know how much there really is to talk about, but I know you guys want to bring it up. Basically, all of the awards now are named after players. I don't think there's any misses on that list. The MVP trophy being changed to the Michael Jordan trophy, I think that fits.
No, absolutely not.
So who outside of Michael Jordan can you have be the MVP?
Maybe Kareem.
Because I know
I got two players. One is current, one is not. So Adam kind of gave it away. Yes, Kareem. So the name of the MVP award should be the guy who won it the most. That's Kareem. That is not Michael. That is why I also think the Defensive Player of the Year award should go to Mutombo or Wallace. They won it the most.
The only player,
and they're part of the history.
The only player. The only player on the list that I don't have an agreement with is clutch player being Jerry West. We have different opinions on this. I think that is a great way to honor Kobe. I think making that the Kobe Bean Bryant Award was a layup, and they missed it.
But didn't they already make the All-Star trophy called the Kobe?
Yeah, but that's the All-Star trophy.
I think it should have gone to Kareem. The MVP should have gone to Kareem or The second one might surprise you because
Jimmy Butler.
this player is still no. This player is still playing, but I think he has a better case than Kareem, believe it or not. So I think the MVP award should actually be named after the only player to win it unanimously, and that's Steph Curry.
I wouldn't have a problem with that if he was retired and it had been a few years. I just think the MVP should go to the best player in the league, and the best player in the league of all time
is Jordan.
was Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
UNC, baby.
I also disagree with that, but, I think it should be Kareem, or I think it should be Curry.
You can disagree with it. That's fine. You're allowed to be wrong.
Yep.
Outside of that, Sixth Man of the Year, John Havlicek. I agree with that completely.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. I personally think it should be named after Manu Ginobili, which Havlicek is the better sixth man statistically, but I think Manu did so much for that Spurs team that people don't realize.
Manu's not even my second choice. He might be my third. I think if you're not going to have it be the Havlicek, you have to go with another Celtic, which is Kevin McHale.
But McHale was starting on most of those championship teams, though.
What about Jamal Crawford?
I like Crawford, but I wouldn't name an award after him.
And
he's probably my fourth. I think mine would be Havlicek, McHale, Ginobili, Scary Terry, and then Crawford. Don't have much respect for certain other players that should have been starting that weren't, but that's besides the point.
And let's confirm, when you say Scary Terry, you're talking about Jason Terry, not Terry Rozier.
Yeah. Most improved player, George Mikan. Again, I'm fine with that. And
I'm fine with it too.
Clutch Player of the Year, Jerry West. That's the only one I don't agree with, and I think Angelo also doesn't agree with that because he says it should be the Michael Jeffrey Jordan Award.
I do not know if this is still a fact, but I should probably look up before I say this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. At one point, Carmelo Anthony was the most clutch player of all time statistically. So if that is still true, then
you can stop talking now.
Then I think Carmelo has a chance for it.
That's enough. Just stop it. Just stop. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
So full disclosure before we get into the actual topic, we made a conscious decision that no one can say that Victor Wembanyama is a team's wish list because whether you are the Detroit Pistons or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Golden State Warriors, you want Wembanyama. There's no one that doesn't want him. So that we tried to avoid that. I think there's a few picks where we want lower draft picks as a wish list because teams are being more successful than I think either they or us anticipated. So with that said, I think we're ready to get into the actual topic of the video.
I do actually have one more for the award.
Okay.
For the for defensive player of the year. Before we started, Angelo was talking about some people that he would rather have.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, if you're not naming it the Elijah one, it has to be named after Sidney Moncrief.
What?
I think there's a lot of people that you could put on there.
I think it should be Mutombo or Wallace because they won the award the most. I think if you want to, expand upon that, you could argue for Dennis Rodman. You could argue for like a Draymond Green, but
Gary Payton.
I
think they nailed that one. Our test would
just with his history. I'm sorry.
With his history, they wouldn't do it. But I think that honestly, looking at the list, George Mikan and Olajuwon are the least controversial in my opinion.
I just don't like it.
I agree with the Olajuwon 100%. I'm just saying as an alternative, every player that's ever played against Moncrief always says he's the best defensive player they've always played against. And he did win the award as one of the only guards for a long time.
That's also fair. So with all that said, are you ready now to get into our
Yes.
actual wish lists now? Okay. So I will go ahead and start it off. We'll kind of go through the rotation here. We'll each say one, give a chance for the others to rebuttal, and move on to the next topic. We're learning more and more to not drag things out too long because we're ending up with a lot of stuff that we're actually having to cut out, and it's a lot of fun. So I will start off. So my first team is going to be probably one of my most boring picks, which I'm going to start with the 76ers. For me, the 76ers' biggest wish for this Christmas is the easiest thing any of us are going to have to pick, which is health. Their big three have played a total of 6 games together. They've won 2 of those 6. When they're healthy, they're clearly one of the legitimate contenders in the East, and I researched them. I was looking through every stat I could find, and there's nothing they're missing out on. It's just getting them all together at the same time, which seems to be impossible at this point.
See, I personally don't think Harden can be on a championship team. I don't think he has the mindset. He doesn't play defensively, and I don't know. He just wants to play the ball or the game his way and not the way the game should be played.
I think he's gotten a lot better about the selfish James Harden that we saw back during the Rockets days. Defensively, you're never going to get much out of him, but they are such a good defensive team top to bottom that I think you can hide him on defense. And as long as you're not using him as a go-to scorer, I personally think he needs to be used as the third option on that team because obviously that is Embiid's team.
Yes.
Maxey has emerged into damn near a superstar player. Harden's the third guy, and as long as he accepts that role and becomes more of a playmaker, because we all know how good of a playmaker he is, I think he can very much be a part of a championship team, and I think it could be that team.
James Harden is the third best player on a championship team I could see. I teeter a lot with the 76ers on whether I want to call them a championship caliber team or not, only because of how good the Bucks and the Celtics are playing right now.
The only reason if you're a contender in basketball, it's very easy to go from being a contender to winning it all. And it's all about getting hot at the right time. If there's a playoff series where all of Embiid, Maxey, and Harden, and even Tobias Harris are hitting their shots, there's not many teams in this league right now that can beat them. They just can attack you in so many different ways. They can hit you inside. They can do the pick and roll really well. They can shoot really well. There's just not many holes to them offensively. Defensively, they've got great defenders on the team. We know that. And they've got a great defensive coach. So if they're on a hot streak, there's nothing any team not named Boston or Giannis putting the Bucks on his back will be able to stop.
I guess that's fair.
I just don't think so, but I'm not going to repeat the same point.
All right, so that's all I got for the 76ers. So next we'll go on to Adam. Start off your list.
For me, I'm going to start off with the Pistons, which I think what my Christmas list for them is going to be is basically obvious. Cade Cunningham to come back from his injury and not being...
Isn't it...
What?
Let me interrupt you. Isn't it season end? Didn't they roll him out for the rest of the season?
Yeah.
He had season-ending shin surgery.
On his chin, yeah.
Yeah.
Shin, yeah.
So him coming back from injury and that leg, of course, being able to hold up. And, of course, him to be able to live up to his expectations. He's not being the Cade Cunningham that everybody thought he was going to be. He seems to fall more into like the Andrew Wiggins category. He's a good player, but he's not. He's a good player, but he's not. He's not a star player.
Adam coming out of the gate with a hot take on the first one.
That is a hot take.
I think the difference between Wiggins and Cade is pretty evident. I think that positionally they're completely different players, obviously, but Cade came out perfectly fine. There wasn't a ton of expectations going to Detroit. We knew they were still going to be rebuilding for a while. Wiggins was going into a good situation, and he floundered out of the gate. I wouldn't say Cade has floundered at all. I'd say that he's performed exactly like I expected him to. I think he's got a lot of room to grow, but he's only played 2 seasons so far, and one of them was obviously only 2 weeks, but...
Yeah, and that's where I get into what my actual hot take I thought was going to be, which is, if he does come back playing like he did or better, I think the Pistons are only 2 or 3 seasons away from winning the championship.
I think that depends on where their draft pick falls, because obviously...
Well, now it's going to fall because Cade Cunningham's out.
Right, but we still have the lottery to get through, and you have a better shot of getting the first overall pick from the field. But with Cade being out, obviously their tank is going to be full-blown, but if they end up with that second overall pick, I mean, you have to take the best player overall, and that, as of now, a lot can change between now and the draft, but as of now, that's Scoot Henderson. They've already got Cade, they've already got Jaden Ivey. Do they want to take another guard?
See, I don't think you do.
You don't. So if their pick falls to that second, they're either trading down or drafting someone that isn't the best player available.
Obviously, I think this is one of the situations where it would just be easiest to say they won't win Victor.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think when you have a team like the Pistons or even out west with, hilariously right now, the Utah Jazz, it's fair to say that they want Victor because of where they are as a franchise. I'm glad you didn't just say Victor, but I do think that would have been a fair one. That was actually one of the ones I was expecting when I was talking about that.
Yeah.
It feels like we were interrupting Angelo a lot right there, so do you have something to add?
Do you feel like the Pistons of the last 2-3 years and moving forward is the closest thing we've seen to the 76ers, was it Sam Presti, the process? Do you think that's the closest thing we've seen to it? Because I think it is.
I think it's the closest thing we've seen to it. Obviously, it's not... It's close to it, but it's nothing
it's
like
not,
that.
It's not the exact same, though.
Yeah, it's shades of, as we say in 2K. But it's not anything like that Tank Fest.
I think it's more along the lines of the Charlotte Hornets.
That's fair.
So what, they just draft busts all the time?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't worry, guys. This one's going to work. But at least this time, we know a shin surgery isn't exactly a career-threatening surgery. We know Cade's going to come back. He's already averaging 20 points this season. He's shooting about the same as last season. We should expect him to get better. But no matter what, we know Cade is not a bust. Jaden Ivey looks really good out of the gate.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying he's a bust. I've never said he was a bust. I'm just saying...
No.
He never lived up to the expectation that at least I thought he was going to live up to.
I think when you're an undersized guard, especially when in recent years all of the top picks have been bigs or forwards, there's an expectation that they're going to come out and physically dominate, and when you're an undersized guard, that's not the case, and I think the speed of the game from college to pros is so drastic that even if you're a good shooter in college, once you get to the pros, people are closing out on you a lot faster, and I think that takes a lot of time to adjust.
I have a problem with you saying that. 6'6" is an undersized guard.
I was about to say the same thing.
He plays undersized. He plays undersized.
Okay.
Because he's a very shifty player.
I don't know. I just think he needs to raise his 3-point percentage up. Obviously.
And I think that comes with time.
Yeah, and it's going to. I mean, everybody learns how to shoot throughout their career, unless your name's Shaq. Or
Shaq had a couple of those. Shaq had a couple of those things. But I think... Do you have anything else to add on the Pistons?
Adam or Angelo?
Anyone.
I'm good.
I'm done.
All right, so then we'll move on to Angelo's first team.
Okay, so my first team, I'm going to go with the Nets. And, at first, I'm not going to lie. At first, I was looking at Kyrie. Kyrie is like a gaping red neon sign that says, pick me, pick me. But I'm actually going to throw a little curveball in here. So, my gift to the Brooklyn Nets is the gift of clarity. You said last week that they should blow it up. I agree with you. And here's why I agree. The Nets so far have been very similar or exactly the same statistically as they were last year.
Right.
And what happened last year? They got smoked by Boston. They are setting themselves up to get smoked in the playoffs again, whether it be the first round, the second round. Whenever they face Boston or potentially even Milwaukee, they're getting smoked out of there. So, honestly, I agree with you. I think they should look for an opportunity to trade Kyrie, trade KD, and rebuild the war chest. So I'm going to let you guys take it over.
I don't have anything to add. I completely agree, and that's been an opinion of mine basically for the entire season. Basically since the offseason. With the Kevin Durant trade request, it should have just happened. This team obviously had locker room issues. With that talent, they're not clicking together, and that is such a huge emphasis now. Moving lockers closer together, getting guys to work together on the floor. If you're not communicating, if you're not working together, it's very evident in how you play, especially when you are one of the greatest of all time, either at your position or just in the game of basketball. And they've got a few of those on that team, a couple of those. It's just not coming together, it's not meshing, and it's not showing in the win column. And
they're on a nice streak right now.
Oh, yeah, right now. But overall, over the last 2 years, and you could factor a lot of that into Kyrie. The team is going to be energized with Kyrie coming back, but when it comes down to it, this team, just at an eye test level, is not competing with the Bostons. It's not competing with the Bucks. It's not competing with the 76ers. It's got too many glaring issues. A lot of that stems from the team just not having a lot of evident chemistry, at least from the outsider's perspective. Obviously, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But if I'm a bench player or a role player and my star player publicly requests a trade, it's going to take a lot for me to be able to trust him again.
See, to me, I think it's just going to be so hard to trade Kevin Durant or Kyrie at this point.
Absolutely. I think Kyrie's easier than Kevin.
Well, even besides the off-court issues, just the fact that everybody's going to be trying to get picks to get Victor. So there's no reason to really trade unless you are a championship team, and if you are a championship team, you can't afford him without getting rid of your core.
So there are teams that could. There are teams that definitely could. It's just a matter of how do we make the salaries work, because the Pelicans have the pieces they need to get him. They have the Lakers' first-round pick, which by itself is going to have a ton of value because the Lakers are a dumpster fire.
Also, I've been playing well recently. I think they've won 8 of their last 9.
They've been playing decent, but
they should have beat Boston.
let's pump our brakes on the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. Just, but there are teams out there that could afford Kevin Durant. It's just a matter of if they're willing to pull the trigger. And at this point, with the exception, well, no, not even with the exception, Kevin Durant is a player that's going to come give you some good seasons, and then if things don't go his way, he's going to request a trade. That's what we've seen from him. I don't think that changes. Kyrie, I think a lot of teams are going to be hesitant to pull the trigger on for his off-the-court issues, but the talent is there, so there would be takers, and a lot more teams can afford Kyrie Irving.
Agreed.
It's just a matter of the teams that would want him already are running backcourts with smaller guards that aren't exactly defensive stoppers. Going off on a tangent here, but perfect world, in my opinion, for Kyrie Irving as a fit perspective would be the Milwaukee Bucks. Because then you run Drew at the off guard. That would be beautiful basketball.
That would be.
I hate to say it, but honestly, I think he's best to go back to Boston.
No.
No.
That would we want to avoid the off the court issues. After Milwaukee, I think the Lakers are a good fit, but the Lakers just don't have the pieces to trade for him, and unless Kyrie were to come out and say, "I want to trade, and I'm only going to the Lakers," then you do a Westbrook and a pick, or Westbrook and 2 picks, or whatever it takes to get Kyrie to the Lakers. I just don't know if Kyrie by himself with LeBron and AD pushes them over the hump.
So what if you did something like, so AD's value is skyrocketed and it's where as high as it's going to be. So what if you traded like AD or LeBron, get picks, and then move those picks in Westbrook to get Kyrie and pair LeBron, Kyrie, and someone else, or AD, Kyrie, and someone else? Do you think that would be better than the core they have now?
I don't move on from AD. I think that you have to keep him. That's the thing is, yes, LeBron is one of the greatest players of all time. A lot of people would say he is the greatest player of all time. You are one of those.
I am.
But he's not that right now. He's not the best player in the league. He's not anywhere close to that right now. And it's really difficult to say, but I think you have to look at trading LeBron and then building around Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is still in his prime. He's in his early prime.
Also,
you have a potential future there.
Also, to hop in here to correct Angela real quick, the Lakers, besides Boston, have lost 4 of their last 6 games.
That is... Yeah, the Lakers just... In the modern NBA, you can't win when you're shooting 5% from 3. Which I know they're shooting better than 5%, but it feels like 5% if you're watching them.
They lost to Philadelphia, which is not bad. They lost to Toronto. They lost to Cleveland. And then they lost to the Pacers.
Well, I mean, anyone can lose to the Pacers.
And then they lost to Boston. But, yeah, only 3 of those I think they should lose to. Like, statistically and on paper, they should beat Cleveland. They should beat Toronto.
I don't think...
Cleveland? They should beat Cleveland? What? They should beat Cleveland.
So, as a Pacers fan, the only team they should beat on that list would be the Pacers, but the problem is the Pacers have been playing really good, and it's really sad because I want them to win, but I also wanted a high draft pick, but it's fine. Everything's fine. Do you guys have anything else to add on to the Nets?
No, I am. That is it. I'm ready to move on.
Okay, so we're back to me, and I'm going to go to my second one, which, for me, it's the Chicago Bulls. And this one was probably the hardest to find something. I dug really deep through the trenches.
How about to not be in purgatory?
I'll get to that. So I debated Levine bouncing back from his injury because ever since the start of the year, he's not been the same player as last year. Patrick Williams stagnating. He's only 21 years old, and we expected more from him. But I was looking actually through advanced stats, and I know you're not a big fan of advanced stats, but I've got a few advanced
I'm not.
stats for you. So, in games where clutch time is counted, so clutch time is any time in the last 5 minutes where the game is within 5, or last 3 minutes, or something like that. In those games this season, the Bulls are 3 for 11. The really interesting stats here are their three key players, which are DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine, right? So their leading scorer in the clutch is DeMar DeRozan, who is averaging 5.1 points per game in clutch situations, but he's shooting 43% and 0% from three. Vucevic is averaging a point and a half per game, shooting 36%, and he's shooting, I want to say it's like 38% from three, but he doesn't have a lot of opportunities. And then Zach LaVine is scoring 2 points per game. And this is where I run into an issue, because LaVine is not having a terrible shooting season. He's shooting somewhere in like the mid to high 40s, which you want better, but that's not a terrible shooting split. But in clutch situations, he's shooting 27% from the field and 11% from three. If I'm the Bulls, my biggest Christmas wish is for my star players to start playing like star players. If it's the end of the game and it's a close game, and you're someone that I'm supposed to be trusting with the ball in his hands, you cannot be shooting 11% from three. You cannot be shooting 0% from three. So that is my Christmas wish from the Bulls front office, is for my star players to suddenly realize that they are star players.
I think...
I'm going to give you a...
Go ahead, Angela.
I'm going to give you a hot take.
Okay.
I hated the way they assembled that team from the start.
Oh, absolutely.
I do not believe... Go ahead.
I think that Zach LaVine had a breakout year, and they threw together the stars they could afford around him.
Yeah. I think they wanted Zach LaVine to be, that guy who, when they needed to, would carry the team. And he's not. Lonzo Ball is a great... At times, I think Lonzo Ball is the best player on that team. There's really times where I feel that way.
I think because of his two-way impact, but that's also how Patrick Williams is. There's some nights where you forget he even plays in the NBA, and then there's some nights where he looks like a fringe superstar.
I also think it didn't help that it seemed like Vooch just fell off a cliff once he got to Chicago. But
I think that was a lot of system change.
I just don't like it. I think you need at least one guy who, when the game's on the line, can get you points when you need it.
Right.
And I think they wanted that to be LaVine, but go ahead.
That's what I'm saying, is LaVine is averaging 2 points in crunch time. DeMar is currently the guy that's scoring for them, and that's just backwards. Like, DeMar had one of the best seasons of all time last year. I get that, but...
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of DeMar as a player. He's super fun to watch. He's an archaic player, but he makes it work. He shoots the mid-range better than anyone I've ever seen with my own two eyes.
Jordan.
KD.
I don't think so. I think DeMar's better. I think he's better at getting to those spots. But Zach, he's really not rising to the moment. He's not rising to the challenge of being a star player. And he's deferring a lot. And the times he doesn't defer, he's shooting 11% from three. 3 and 11 is a depressing stat line. If I was Chicago, I would want answers. I don't think it's time for a blow-up. I think you just need to figure something out.
I think the Bulls successfully set themselves up to be the Indiana Pacers, which is the team that's, oh, you're nice, and then you lose in the playoffs to the star players.
I think Lonzo coming back will help that, because we know he's going to get guys open looks. We know he's going to play good defense. So that's going to help in the end game scenarios. But I just really need to see someone on that team taking those big shots and making them.
I think, honestly, you trade DeMar. He's older. He's at his highest value.
You're not
he's
going to
ever
get value
be.
out of him.
Yeah, he's at his highest it's ever going to be.
But
He's
is it
like
value? But could it be value by subtraction? Because I don't know right off what DeMar's contract is. I can pull it up real quick while I'm talking. But
Just keep talking. I'll look it up. I got you.
if he isn't there, if you're thinking of basketball meccas in the NBA, it's all the big cities. But specifically, you've got LA, you've got New York, and you've got Chicago. Chicago is a free agent draw, even though it's in the Midwest and it's cold half the year. Getting that contract off the books could help you down the line for the future.
So, Spotrac has DeMar at a 3-year, $81 million contract that started last year. He's in the middle of that, and then next year's the final year. He's making $27 million this year, $28 million the following.
So that could be addition by subtraction if you were to find a buyer for him. I just don't know who would be able to use him as a contending team that would have the cap space to take him on without sending something back.
I don't think you send him to be a one and done. Like, obviously, if he doesn't like where you send him, he's going to leave. But I don't think you send him to somewhere like LA. I think, honestly, his best fit would be to send him to New York.
To where?
New York.
For what reason?
He would fit with...
So they can be in purgatory?
He would fit with that team better.
He must really like purgatory then. I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's all I got for the Bulls. You guys good?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Alright, so next up, Adam, your second team.
My second team is going to be the Washington Wizards. And I don't...
Literal purgatory.
Hold on, I'm going to go to sleep for this one.
I don't know what the hell Kyle Kuzma has been eating or what he's been drinking. I think he's been drinking...
Thank you!
I think he's been eating or drinking some of Michael's secret stuff. I mean, he does have it tattooed on him, so maybe that's giving him some power. But this man has been completely off the wall this year. And I think, honestly, it's just that Kuzma continues to be the person he is, and you end up getting some pieces to put around him at the moment.
Well, let me, because this is actually really funny, because I was looking at NBA Twitter while you were talking. So 20 hours ago, the Lakers have inquired about Kyle Kuzma as a trade piece. Ooh. And then Kuzma himself, 4 hours ago, tweeted, "Nothing like getting off the plane and that California breeze hitting you." So it's... I don't know if it's just trolling, because we know Kyle Kuzma likes to troll. But who is, like... He fits with the Lakers culture. He fits with the LA culture. He's a little young socialite, as they like to call him. And I think him going back to the Lakers, I think that would be a good fit. Not to interrupt or take over your take, because I think that's just perfect timing.
No, it is 100% perfect timing, and I can see him going back. He's big. He's friends with LeBron. I don't even know if he had him seen in the new Space Jam movie, but I know he was supposed to. So he's obviously good friends with LeBron. But the way he's performing right now, and him only being 27, he's still he's still got some years left in him. You're not really considered past your prime till you're in your 30s, 33, 34. So I think you've got some good years with him, and I don't think you waste that behind or on a team with LeBron and AD.
I don't know, because
I think if you're Kuzma, you go to somewhere like the Bucks. You go to a championship team where you can make an impact.
Behind Drew, Giannis, and Chris Middleton?
Chris Middleton is older. Drew...
Chris Middleton is literally the person they rely on in the clutch moments. He's the guy they want dribbling and getting a bucket. Giannis likes to defer to Middleton in those situations.
Exactly. So
Unless
why not add a second person to help Middleton out? They can't double team Middleton in clutch situations if there's someone else over there that's scoring 15 to 20 points a game.
Kuzma's contract.
So instead of LeBron telling Kuzma to sit in that corner and hit that three, he's going to have Chris Middleton and Giannis telling him to sit in the corner and hit the three?
No, he would be more offensively capable on the Bucks. Because I don't think Giannis is not as much of a rely on the ball as most people think he is.
Ooh. What about Kuzma to Boston?
See, now that would be good. Maybe trade like Brogdon or something for him.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Well,
Brogdon's been way too good off the bench for that team. Because if you're trading for Kuzma, I think there's other pieces you would have to move. Because you would.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you get Kuzma's deal? What is he on?
13 mil a year.
Ooh, okay, that's not steep. Yeah, that's not steep. You could move some stuff around, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be fairly easy to afford. So yeah, that would be a good fit for Kuzma. I'm not the biggest Kuzma fan personally, so I don't necessarily want to see him on one of those teams that I enjoy watching. I prefer watching teams play against him. I like him being on the other team. It's like prime LeBron. Like, everyone always says, oh, I would love to have LeBron on my team. I wouldn't, because I like watching LeBron play against my team, because I want to see the attempt to beat him. I want to see the attempt for him to lose.
This man just admitted, while we were recording, that he enjoyed LeBron smoking the Pacers every year.
It's not so much that. Besides finals, okay, because finals are a whole different experience. As a LeBron fan, were you not entertained by the Pacers Heat Paul George emergent season where LeBron and Paul George were trading dunks back and forth? It was enjoyable. I think that playing against LeBron brings out the best in people because they want to beat him. That's why Benedict Mathurin is the new greatest player in the world, because LeBron ain't.
I do agree that the PG LeBron stuff was fun to watch, but if you remember, because we were talking at the time, when that game went to 7, what did I tell you? You just lost that series. And you know what happened? You just lost that series. I knew it was going to happen. It was a foregone conclusion. LeBron was winning that series. I'm sorry. LeBron was winning that series no matter what. So, are we ready to move on to my next one?
Yep. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm good.
This is probably the Bucks. It was honestly really hard to find something on the Bucks because they're a contending team. Giannis is amazing. The gift I would give to them is health to Middleton, because Middleton seems to be, I actually literally just said it, Middleton is the guy Giannis likes to defer to in the late moments to hit a bucket to secure wins, and he likes to, if that shot misses, likes to get that rebound and quickly put it back up. That was one of the key things against the Nets when that series went to 7. The only other thing they could even ask for, and I don't even like saying this because I'm not this kind of person, but the only other thing is an injury to Boston. Because I'm not sure they're going to be in the games. I'm not sure they can beat Boston. Fully healthy. Both of them fully healthy. I'm not sure they can beat Boston.
Right, I completely agree. I think the Bucks are one of those teams that, and I think Adam in the drawing of teams got the Celtics. I think the Celtics are the same way, where it's really difficult to pick something on a wish list unless you're trying to find a hot take. Just because they're so good, top to bottom. There's not much you could ask. You could go off the wall and say my wish list is for Giannis to become a 40% 3-point shooter, which would be completely unfair. So I think that Middleton's health is a more astute pick.
Yeah. Don't worry, it gets more off the walls as we go on.
I know who you've still got coming up, so I know.
I actually don't have much to say on this. I just completely agree with Angela.
It was the most boring one to research. I'm not going to lie.
Celtics
I can't believe you.
What do you say about them? Yeah. What do you say about them? What do you say about a team that's, playing historically good in the Celtics, or a team that's still, number 2 in the East without Middleton, and Middleton's coming back? What do you say?
Right, and that's
They got
the
it
whole point. Is it's almost impossible because there's not anything you can. Like I said,
They've already proved
3-point
it was a
shooting.
championship team.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
a championship team. Like you're just gonna make them more of a championship caliber team, and I think it's either health or Giannis to become a better 3-point shooter or something like that. I that's honestly one of the most
Accepted
boring ones.
that they can contend without Giannis developing the shot. I think Giannis is still working on the shot, but I think that they are content with the way they're constructed competing. And that's fine, because Giannis is so dominant down low. Yeah. Please,
He's
try to
dominant.
stop Giannis as he's burrowing towards you. Please.
He's dominant, but 25% from 3?
It's rough. It is rough.
Can you imagine if Giannis suddenly just was hitting
He'd be undefendable.
40?
He'd be undefendable.
He would
He
be
would
embarrassing people every night.
He would be the moniker of modern basketball because he would be great in the two things that modern basketball is known for, which is inside the paint or on the 3-point line.
See, I don't even think you need
He'd be the embodiment of it.
I don't even think you need him to be a 40% shooter. I think high 30, mid 30s would be fine.
Yeah. I mean, if he was just super confident, like someone you don't leave open ever,
Yeah.
that would be insurmountable in this league. But I don't think there's much to say about the Bucks. I just think they're too good.
Yeah.
So
that's all I gotta say. Let's move on. Ryan,
All
who you got
right,
next?
so we're back to me. So
Yep.
my third team is the Raptors. So this was actually, I was debating between two things, and while I was researching, I saw a tweet, and I agree with it, so I'm going to kind of incorporate both of them. So
Okay.
this will all come full circle. So to start with, the easy one before I get into any stats is they need a big. They need a true
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
I don't need to go into why, but that's an obvious thing we're seeing. They're just not adequate at defending in the paint. They're not adequate at getting rebounds. They're not really that great at inside scoring. Pascal is a 4, and that's where he should be.
Yep.
But flipping it over, the bigger need is 3-point shooting. So the Raptors last season were terrible at shooting threes. They're worse this year. They, as a team, are shooting 32% from 3. The only teams in the league, there's only 2 of them that are shooting worse than
Lakers.
them. Lakers are the worst, and then the Rockets. The
The
issue
Rockets are surprising. Go on.
The issue is shooters are, I don't know if you've been following basketball for the last few years, but shooters are a hot commodity. There's not just a plethora of them on the trade block all the time. So this leads me to the trade, and this was a trade suggestion I saw on Twitter, and it's perfect because it's not an expensive trade. It fixes both of, in my opinion, their issues, and it's something that's pretty realistic.
For some
Which
reason,
is-
I think this involves Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, but go on.
It doesn't. It absolutely does not. It shores up 2 spots with 2 role players, one of which would be starting, but just someone... I'm just going to go to it. So, it's Jakob Poeltl and Doug McDermott. 2 depth guys. Poeltl could start, but
Jakob
McDermott gives you someone that you can have off the bench. You can have him start occasionally, and he's one of the best flamethrowers in the league. Bring him in, throw some off-ball screens on him. He's going to hit shots for you. He's going to help you come back from a deficit. He's going to help you close out games. I struggled finding anything else for the Raptors because once I saw how bad they were shooting, I knew it had to be something with shooting. But as I looked through the list of shooters in the league, there's not a lot available in terms of starter caliber or even 6th, 7th man. So I think they need to go a different route, get someone that can come off the bench, even if it's a little deeper on the bench. I think McDermott could be a 7th, 8th man, and just start grinding that shooting percentage back up, because right now there's not a lot of threat from the Raptors. When you're game planning the Raptors, you're clogging the paint.
Do you believe that the Raptors and the Bulls are in extremely similar spots? Because I think they are.
I think they're... Yeah, because I think Pascal had that breakout year. It's the same thing as Levine.
Yep.
Had a breakout year, and they decided to build around him. And I don't know if that was necessarily the case, or necessarily the right choice. I think they should have brought someone in to pair with them, but not build around them.
So I'm looking at the roster for the Raptors right now.
Mm-hmm.
They actually only have one listed center on the entire roster, and that's Kim Birch.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, center is their biggest need positionally, but you have to find a way to get that shooting up, and so that's why I saw that trade, and it just made too much sense to me.
No, you're not right. Yeah.
You said Miles Turner with Buddy Hield. That would be a good fix, but that's a more expensive fix.
That's a very expensive fix.
Unless you're going to win this year, I don't think the Raptors would be a contending team then.
No, that's why I think they're in the same spot as the Bulls. I think they're pretty close to purgatory. They're pretty close to purgatory.
I don't think... The reason I say they're not close to purgatory is they have someone by the name of Scotty Barnes on their team.
He has a lot of potential, yes.
He has a lot of potential. And, like, yes, they have valuable pieces that they're comfortable moving. Like, I'm a big fan of Gary Trent Jr., but they're obviously comfortable moving him. Fred VanVleet, they made a monetary commitment to him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up moving him. For whatever reason, they've thrown all the eggs in the basket into Pascal, and so I don't see them moving on from him. But they do have pieces to go out and get quality players to either jumpstart a rebuild or just do a quick little retooling. I think trading OG would be a bad choice, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him be on the move in 57 days or whenever the trade deadline is.
See, I think you need to move Pascal just because he's taking the 4 position, taking up $35 million of contract money, and he's not really outperforming Precious Atu yet, who is his big player. So I think you move him, you could start Achuya. I think he could be a Kenneth Faried type player on the Nuggets when he was actually decent. When he was actually the manimal.
I think the thing about Pascal is I think Pascal is a very talented, quality NBA player.
Yeah.
He's not $35 million worth, though.
He's not, and I think that Toronto has kind of heavily invested in him as the current face of the franchise, for better or worse. And
I think it should be Scotty, but yeah.
I 100% agree it should be Scotty. But I think for right now, it is Pascal. And I just don't know how you move on from that. But that's all I got for the Raptors.
Things are about to get really spicy. All right, Adam, you're next.
So my next one, I have the Magic. And this is one thing I have said about the Magic for probably decades. They need to learn how to draft good guards. They have drafted all-star big men everywhere, and it looks like Pablo. It looks like
Paulo.
Paulo is about to become a all-star himself eventually.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
didn't
the
they?
way he's playing, yeah.
So that's my pick for them. Is I think they need I don't know if it's a scouting department or what it is, but they need somebody to find them some guards, and they need to start drafting some better guards.
Cole Anthony is not a bad player.
He's not a bad player, but he's not the guard that's going to revolutionize your team.
Right, and I don't.
You don't necessarily need that.
You don't
though.
need that though, do you? Because like, if you've got a, okay, for example, let's look at the Boston Celtics. Who is the best player in their starting lineup?
Jason Tatum,
Jason Tatum. Second best player.
Brown,
Third best player.
Brogdon.
Probably Robert Williams.
I'd say Williams.
Well, he's injured right now. That's why I'm not.
So- The point I'm making is, as you go down the list, like, you're gonna get to players in that starting lineup that are not. Everyone needs a Mario Chalmers, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's fine to be the Mario Chalmers, but when you you got to look at their roster and realize they don't have guards that are capable of getting their bigs the ball where they need it. And Mario
don't know.
Chalmers, while he was just there to score, he could pass and get the ball where it needed to be. And Cole Anthony is just too much of a scorer.
I think the Magic are in this weird spot where they have a lot of really young pieces that, like, they could be super deep if some of those pieces developed properly. Like, super, super deep. I don't necessarily think that, like, drafting guards is the thing they need to, like, do. I just think that they need to, continue the process, let the players develop, and obviously they're going to have more high picks. Just keep drafting, and I think they'll get there. I think they have a chance to build something that's similar to what Boston has built with the right development and the right drafting in the future.
See, and the thing is with
I just don't think they're there yet.
no, maybe a different type of guard, because looking at their roster just at a glance, they've got Markelle Fultz. He's 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Cole Anthony, who's 21. They've got Jalen Suggs, who's 21.
Markelle, who's averaging 10 points a game. Jalen Suggs, who's your leading scorer for guards.
Right, but Markel's averaging 10 points a game, 5 assists, and he's only playing 25 minutes. I just don't know if necessarily that would be my big focus. Just because we have these players that are so young and are already so talented, because if you have a guard averaging 14, 5, and 5 as a 21-year-old, which is Cole Anthony, I don't know if drafting is my focus. I think my focus is just development at this point, because you only have so many roster spots.
Well, development is going to be the key point for everybody, whether you're got a new team or whether you're an old team. You still want to develop and be better. So that's why I didn't really consider the development, because I figured that would be something that just every team would do.
Honestly, if I was... It goes back to the... We need to not say Victor, but we need to say Victor here, because with how young that team is, 1 through 4, including in their bench roles, because I think it's the youngest team in the NBA. If not, it's pretty close to it. It's probably between them and the Houston Rockets. But with how young that team is, they need a 5. And there's a really, really good 5 in this draft.
See, but they have 3 centers on the roster that play and get significant minutes.
But
So it's actually Oklahoma City, and it's 21.14 years. Or 23.14.
wow.
23 years old is their
But
average player.
do they have... Because I know, like, Bol is super tall, but he's more comfortable at the 4.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Mo
And I think they
Bamba,
should keep him.
Mo Bamba is a quality player. He's not someone I think you build around. I think he'd be a good backup. And then Paulo is more comfortable at the 4.
And you're forgetting Mo Wagner, who is getting played currently their starting center.
Ooh. Hold on.
So, remember...
He's not doing amazing.
Earlier,
He's averaging like 10 points a game.
So, remember earlier, I think it was last episode, or maybe it was the first, where I said if the Oklahoma City Thunder used all their draft picks and for selections, they did it wrong?
Yeah.
This is why.
Right,
this is what happened.
There's too much and you're not letting the young players develop. Because they have 3 really talented young point guards. They have a smorgasbord of bigs, and they don't have any 3s, honestly, that are worth anything. I think that
Franz Wagner's their best.
well, I mean, and Franz is very, very good, don't get me wrong. Like, he is... Eurobasket was a joy to watch because of Franz, but they don't have any depth at that position, and I would...
They don't have no depth. I mean, he's still averaging 20 points a game for him, but like you said last week, though, you have to have somebody to score.
He definitely is, though. He is that guy, because we saw in Eurobasket, and we saw... And during this season, I know, like, Chicago Bulls fans are probably kicking themselves because I think that was their pick, but at the same time, like, there's no telling the Bulls would pick him at that same spot, but I don't know. If I was them, I would want a true center over another guard, just because even if you want to draft a better guard, you have 3 young guards already. You're oversaturating the position, and any chance of one of them developing is going down the more you draft or trade for young guards, because someone's losing minutes. And with how much potential we've seen from flashes of Cole Anthony and flashes of Jalen Suggs, and even flashes from Markelle Fultz now that his shoulder's not clicking every time he shoots, I would be more want to give them more playing time to develop and go for a true, I say true, but go for a center. Get a center on this team, or a depth 3.
If you get a center, and let's just say it's not Victor, because obviously we've already established that, you need a paint protector. And you need a paint protector rebounder, so that way you don't have to have Banchero in the paint all the time.
I don't know if I kind of want Banchero in the paint all the time.
No, he's much better. I think he would be much better coming over on the help side. For the help defense. That's what I think him coming over top would be a lot better. But that's just me. But that's all I've got to say about the Magic, because I just think they need to do that.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to it, so if you're ready to go to your next one, Angelo, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So, my next one is the Hornets. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have a decent amount of numbers since MJ took over the Hornets. And I did not expect the take that I ended up with. But did you know that since MJ has taken over the Hornets, they have only hired 2 head coaches?
I did not know that.
Steve Clifford and... what's the other one's name?
Starts with a V. I don't have the names in front of me. But I actually think that is solid, consistent, because here's the thing. I don't necessarily think, like, I'm not a big, coaches matter, you need to keep cheering until you find the right one. I think it's better to keep someone in there, and only in instances where, like, your players, like, you lose the locker room, or extreme examples, is when I think you should, hire a new coach. MJ and his staff has been fairly consistent, and even though they've been fairly consistent, they have 2 playoff appearances since he's took over. Both of them were losses in the first round. He has 3 years, 3 seasons, where the Hornets were above 500. And they've only drafted 2 stars in the, and I'm calling stars, Kemba and now LaMelo. The Hornets need to draft and develop better. That's just the end of it.
Honestly,
No one's coming to Charlotte. Let's be real. No one's coming to Charlotte. So they have the structure there. They have the consistency there. They just need to get players and develop players to then build around LaMelo, because LaMelo is a good player. He's going to be a star if he's not already a star. And I just don't see the path forward for... I mean, this is good for the Hornets that LaMelo is missing so much, because they're going to get a higher draft pick, going to get someone to surround LaMelo with. But really what they need is they need to draft better, they need to develop better. Because what I've seen with the consistency MJ has had is not reflecting the results.
So
Go ahead.
I have an interesting stat for you.
Okay.
So
hit me, Statman.
So this is part of what I'm going to go into. So out of all the coaches in the NBA history, any who were players who made the Hall of Fame, right?
Yep.
They have won a total of 8 championships. Every player that's ever made the Hall of Fame that became a coach combined has won 8 championships. As I'm looking down the list of Hall of Fame players that became coaches, very few of, like, Casey Jones had a positive record, he won rings. Bill Russell had a positive record, he won rings.
Yep.
But Dick McGuire, negative record. Isaiah Thomas, negative record. Jason Kidd, negative record. Larry Bird had a positive record.
Okay.
I think there's this thing where when you have a superstar player or a legend player or a Hall of Fame player, they're not seeing the game in the same way. I know you don't think coaches are as important, but we'll cover that a different time.
Yeah.
I think there's a correlation between a student of the game and a talent of the game. Not a correlation. I think there's a difference between a student of the game and a talent of the game.
Okay.
I go back to the Boston Celtics. I can't remember if it was the playoffs. It was back during the KG Paul Pierce era.
Okay.
And the Celtics were down by 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if the game went to overtime or if it was a game winner. Doc Rivers was the coach at the time, pulled everyone over. They're going through the play. He's drawing it up. The inbound comes in. On that team, you have Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen.
Yep.
It's a buzzer-beating opportunity. You have Ray Allen on the floor, and do you know who took the last shot?
Rondo.
Rajon Rondo.
Yep.
Alley-oop to Rondo. Not an alley-oop to KG. Not a corner 3 to Paul Pierce or Ray Allen. It was a layup to Rondo. I think a student of the game who sees the game as it is versus a player who's naturally talented, and I hate saying naturally talented because it kind of invalidates the work these guys put in, because Michael Jordan isn't the best because he was born the best. Michael Jordan is the best because he became the best. But when you're that good, I think you lose a bit of appreciation for the basics of the game, and you don't see it, and you expect people to be able to do those things at the level you did. And I think that's why a lot of the times when those Hall of Fame players become coaches, they don't have the same success. And I think that's the same problem with Hall of Fame players becoming owners or general managers. And I think there's an appeal to the flash because they see the highlight reels and they see the college awards and the high school awards, and they correlate that to winning.
So, timeout. So then, do you believe then that MJ, obviously MJ has been in these rooms. Do you think MJ has had a huge part to do in the Hornets' failures to draft players?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
And give me 1 second, because I'll have to find it, so keep talking, but there is an example I can use. I just have to remember when it was.
I honestly think for the Hornets, their Christmas list needs to just be fire Michael Jordan. Like, even though he's the owner.
Fire Michael Jordan?
He is the Michael Jordan of bad owners.
But here's the thing. I can at least appreciate that he has had consistency with the coaching. So maybe he is to blame for the player drafting and potentially partially for the player development. But that system, from the outside looking in, is a system that you can build because it has consistency. It has structure to it. At least it appears it does. And you think Michael Jordan's ego, and he's like, I'm going to find the best player in this draft. You think that's been overriding the GM? And
I don't think Michael Jordan is looking at the best player in the draft. That's the issue.
Okay.
I think he's looking at what would work in college and what worked when he was on the court.
Right.
And he doesn't
have...
And
that's kind of the point I'm making.
Yeah, he doesn't have him on the court. So he can't. He's trying to draft for what he would have liked to have without having him.
I can't find it, but there is an example out there of an ownership group wanting to draft a player who ended up not amounting to much, and then MJ wanting to draft a player that ended up not amounting to much, so he was pushing a decision. But I just don't think that... I think when you have a guy like that we all know, like even the biggest Michael Jordan fan knows Michael Jordan is probably the cockiest man to ever walk this planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's what made him great. And I have a hard time if he's made a decision believing someone would come in and be like, okay, well, here's these advanced metrics that show that this guy is definitely the better pick. And Jordan saying, you're right, I'm wrong, we're going with what you're saying. So I just, you go back on your spiel, because I don't think you ever finished.
No, I finished it. I'm done with it. Mine was player development and drafting better. But you seem to think that stems from Jordan.
I think that has a lot to do with Jordan. I don't think it's entirely on Jordan. I just think that when you have these superstars who go into these roles, I think it stems slows the development of those players. But
I don't think
if that's all you got.
I don't think it's fully on Jordan. I'd say it's at least about 50% on him, though.
That's fair. So moving on, my next one, because we're back at the top, is the Miami Heat. And this one I should have done earlier, because this one is very easy for me as well, just from looking at stats. So last season, the Heat were the number one bench scoring team in the league. They were averaging 40.5 points per game just from their bench. Top 15 in rebounds, top 20 in assists per games. Their differential last season was +6. This season, you can fast forward to now, and we know exactly why this happened, or mostly why it happened, which was Tyler Hero becoming a starter, which absolutely he should have. But the drop-off, they're now the second worst team in bench scoring. They went from 40.5 last season to 26.2 this season, and they're bottom 3 in both assists and rebounds this year. Their differential is down -10. That's such a huge fall-off. So if I'm the Miami Heat, my Christmas wish list is a bench. the entire bench. You just need to revamp the whole thing. And I know that's easier said than done.
Very much so.
But one or two good guys on there, and that's all you really need. Or move Hero back to the bench. You need someone running that second unit. You need someone on the floor when the starters are out. Staggering the second best player on the team right now. Not an ideal situation, but you've got to do something because when your bench is getting run through, you're having a lot more weight onto your starters to play at an even higher level than they already are to even be in the game because they're consistently having to come back from deficits whenever they have to sit down for a break.
So, I'm going to put you in a scenario.
Okay.
You're Tyler Hero. You're in your early 20s.
Right.
You have been on the bench basically your whole career.
Absolutely.
You finally get the starting job.
Mm-hmm.
And your coach tells you, we want you to come back from the bench because this is not working out.
Mm-hmm.
How would you take that?
How many minutes am I, Tyler, averaging as a starter?
I'd actually have to look that up.
No, I'm spitballing. Like, I'm asking you, Coach, how many minutes am I going to be playing as a starter?
32.
Huh?
32.
I cannot hear you at all.
Your mic messed up.
Oh, 32.
You're still messed up.
So I'm gonna say like 32 minutes, right? Like that's what we would typically say. So I'm gonna ask you again, Coach, if I'm coming off the bench, how many points am I gonna be averaging? Or how many minutes? Okay, yeah. So I said about 32 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So 32 minutes. So how many minutes am I gonna be averaging if I come off the bench?
Probably around 28 to 30.
Depends. But why? Why not just have me average 30 to 32 off the bench? Why do we think that because you're on the bench, you have to average less minutes than a starter? All you're doing is staggering your players so that you have an offensive threat on the floor at all times. Because right now, if you've got Bam, Tyler, Jimmy, Kyle all coming off the floor at the same time because they're all playing at the same time, and then you're bringing in one or two of them at a time later, trying to stagger it to where you maybe sit Jimmy at 4 minutes and then you're staggering your sitting so that you always have one out there. It just, keeping fresh legs out is going to do more benefit than harm. And if I'm Tyler Hero, I don't care if I'm a starter or if I'm coming off the bench. I'm caring about getting wins. And I'm caring about getting my buckets. And we know he can do that off the bench. If you're playing the same amount of minutes, and you'd be stupid to play him less minutes just because, oh, you're coming off the bench, so it's in the rule book, we got to play you less minutes. That's not a thing. He could be their leading minute getter from the bench. Like, there's no reason that he wouldn't be getting minutes off the bench. If it's a pride thing, sure, but you see a sports psychologist, get over that, because you got to do what's best for the team and what's going to get the wins and what's best for you. As long as you're getting the scoring opportunities and you're getting the minutes, I don't see why he would have a problem with it if the team is not able to find a solution. And it's December 15th today, so we can now see a lot of those players, the recently signed exceptions, are allowed to be traded. So I think this week we'll start to see a lot more rumors and maybe even some movement. We're still 56 days away from the deadline, but there could be.
I'm just going to put
trades.
this out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had why you can't, just because I'm coming off the bench, why can't I get extra minutes? Tyler Hero, the minutes difference from this year to last year is 2, like I said. 28 to 30, 30 to 32. It's the same.
But there doesn't need to be any minute difference. That's just minutes management. He's got more minutes this year. There's no reason he couldn't get more minutes off the bench.
Fair.
But that's all I got. There's not really much with that team. I don't have a problem with their starting lineup. I don't have a problem with any other stat I could find. It's just their bench scoring is absolutely abysmal, and I think that's what's going to hold them back this year, because there's not really much you can do when your bench is -10 in differential.
It is going to be tough.
But that is all I've got. So if you guys are ready to move on, we're going to go to Adam for his fourth.
And for my fourth one, this is probably going to be the quickest one that we're going to do. I'm going to do the Celtics.
Right, it's like the Bucks.
Yeah. I literally have written down here in my notes, not much to say for them. Their core stays healthy and maybe get a better big. But
Yeah,
that's because Robert Williams is injured, but he's coming back, I think, in the next week. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
and
he's
that's-
coming back Friday.
That's kind of what I would say. Like, I don't think they need a better big. I think Time Lord is an amazing big. Health. When you're talking about a team like the Celtics, it's just health.
Well, my thing is...
Got it.
My thing is that, besides Time Lord, their best rebounder is Jason Tatum. And I just don't see how you let a small forward lead your team in rebounding.
Team rebounding can go a long way. Like, if you've got a smaller player who has a vertical or is able to read angles well, like, and you've got centers and power forwards that are big, burly men who are able to box out really well, team rebounding, I always think, has a place in the game. So I don't have a problem with whoever's leading in rebounds as long as it's not in a detriment to the team. Like, if your point guard is averaging 11 rebounds and you're losing, you're probably trying to stat pad for him, but that's a conversation for another time.
Russell Westbrook.
Oh, no.
So do you have anything to add to the Celtics, Angelo? Because I think that's an easy...
I covered basically what I wanted to say about the Celtics and the Bucks topic.
Right.
Yep.
So, moving on to Angelo, your fourth team.
And here's where things get fun. So, the reason MJ wasn't the topic for the last one was because my Christmas gift to the Knicks is to just yeet James Dolan from existence. So, in that same 10-year span that the Charlotte Hornets have had 2 head coaches, the Knicks have had 7. 5 official head coaches and 2 interim coaches. Their starters, or not their starters, the people that the New York Knicks have drafted, specifically R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Obi Toppin, right now have a 12.6 PER, a 12.6 PER, and a 13.3 PER. They are all playing below average. The free agent signings are the best contributions to the Knicks.
Right.
The Knicks are in shambles. They don't want to admit it. They're in the playoffs right now. To me, this is a team that's just a trapdoor away from just falling through. They need to draft better. I think I've said they need to blow it up. This is not the core. R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, this is not the core.
No, and I agree. I think that especially in drafting, because Obi Toppin was a pretty shocking draft pick in 2020, especially. Like, right after him was Tyrese Halliburton, who I don't think we expected Tyrese to evolve into the player he is today, but he was by far the most NBA-ready player, in my opinion, out of that class.
Mm-hmm.
Even Cole Anthony came after him. Isaiah Stewart has been serviceable. Sadiq Bey. Tyrese Maxey, I think, was in that class. And obviously, teams are going to miss. Like, we expect teams to miss. But saying this as a Pacers fan is difficult, but the Knicks miss a lot. And they give us a run for the money in terms of bad drafting decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head when I would say their last great pick was in the draft. Like, I think Kai Jones was decent. I think RJ Barrett is a good player. I think he's a very quality NBA player. But I pulled it up and hold on, I'm still scrolling looking for a good Gallinari back in 2008.
I wouldn't take that one.
Channing Frye 2005. They're just not a great drafting team.
No, they're
Not
not.
even slightly. Oh, Porzingis. I'm
Porzingis is
That's-
probably the
that's
best
the-
one. And they trade him. So
And they traded him, but
And
Yeah.
they also booed him when he was picked.
they did also boo him when he was picked.
that's
You're not
just
wrong.
New York way
Yeah.
of life. That's their culture. But RJ Barrett, the jury's still out on him. I think he's a serviceable NBA player, and I think he'll have a fine career. But I agree, their front office needs an overhaul in terms of how they're evaluating players, because there's some fastballs down the middle that they're just missing.
Yeah. So congratulations, you gave me a team that made me praise Michael Jordan as an owner. So, thank you for that.
I didn't give it, the random number
Will
generator
give it to
did.
you.
The
But
random wheel, the wheel of destiny.
so, do you have anything else to
Gave me-
say about the Knicks? Because I
The
don't.
trash.
They're not trash. They're just
Trash.
The Knicks need to get rid of Julius Randle. That's
I don't-
the only thing I have to say.
He's a player.
I think Randall is a plus. I think the Knicks need to establish an identity. I think that's their biggest problem. Is when I watch the Knicks, if you were to get rid of the jerseys and you're just watching them, and you look
They're
down
alright.
at your phone and you look back up, and you look
You
down
think
and
you
you
saw
look
the
back up.
Pacers?
No, you think you're watching a different team because there's not a lot of cohesion in the way they're playing. There's not a lot of stability. It's a very volatile team, and they don't have an identity, and they should, because it's the New York Knicks. They're supposed to have an identity, and you expect them to, but
What I
I'm
said
just
last
not
week.
seeing it.
This is New York. This is New York. The expectation is higher.
Right. So
To New
I
York
just-
standards, these guys are trash. That's all. I'm saying.
I think that is enough said about New York, and it's sad because they're one of those teams you want to be good for the same reason, like I was saying about LeBron. Like, you want to beat New York, but you want it to be meaningful. You don't want to beat the current New York. You're just kind of like, yeah, we play the Knicks. Okay, gotta put that on DraftKings. We're gonna beat the Knicks. Like, you expect it. So yeah, you got anything else for the Knicks?
Nope.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
So
Oh.
we made a rule when we
Oh boy.
did this where we couldn't have our own favorite teams. So
Yes, indeedy.
I took the Cavs, Adam has the Pacers, and Angelo has the Hawks. Just
Do.
we did rig this a little bit.
Did.
So I'm gonna start off with the Cavaliers. I don't know how you two did this. Knowing Angelo, he tried to come out with a big hot take, and it's gonna blow up in his face, and he's gonna do a lot of yelling in a minute in his best Stephen A. Smith impression. Adam, I don't know how he did it. Me personally, I tried to just be realistic. And looking at the Cavs, they're a very successful team this year. I think anyone would say that. They're punching a lot above their weight, and that will be relevant in a second. Researching them, I could not find a lot. And I didn't want to take the easy way out and say stay healthy, because I knew we were going to do that on a couple teams, because there's a lot of good teams in the league that, you know, when we get to the Western Conference next week, whoever gets the Warriors,
Yeah.
it will be shocking for it not to be Stephen Curry stays healthy. So I didn't want to do that. So instead, I watched a lot of Cavs highlights, and it hurt me to my core.
Wow. I was about to say you're welcome. You got to watch
No.
good basketball for
No.
once.
So based on all the games I watched and all the highlights I watched, one player stuck out to me, and that's Evan Mobley. Mobley is heaps of potential.
Yes.
Super fun to watch. Probably one of my favorite players to watch right now. The only thing I would change about him, and my one wish list if I was the Cleveland Cavaliers, is that man is 7 feet tall and 213 pounds. And while it's fun watching him on the perimeter, it's fun for a different reason watching him inside the paint.
Oh my god.
That man, if I'm the Cavs, my wish list is for him to hit the weight room and up his calorie intake. Because if he were to gain 20, 25 more pounds, the bag of tricks that he has around the net, because he does have them, and being able to shoot outside, and being able to get to the rim off the dribble, gives them a really versatile scorer at the 5. Because right now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's playing the 4 for you guys because you've got Jared Allen.
Yeah, we rotate it out sometimes. Sometimes we even don't start him and we bring him off the bench to come in for the 5 up for the second unit.
Oh, really? You mean you can start a quality player off the bench? Weird. But having Mobley with a little bit more strength at the 5 would let the Cavs have a lot of really fun mismatches because he is so quick and athletic, and I don't think an additional 25 pounds would impact that too much. I still think he would maintain that athleticism because we saw it with LeBron James when he was 250 pounds at 3 inches, 4 inches shorter, being the fastest player in the league. So Mobley hitting the weight room would just give them a truly dangerous player on top of the masterpiece that is Garland and Mitchell as a backcourt.
They're so fun to watch. They're so fun to watch.
It's a really fun team to watch. It pains me to have to watch a game in Ohio, but it is a really fun team to watch, and they're young, and I'm really excited to see what they do in the future.
Len basically just admitted he enjoyed watching LeBron demolish the Pacers in the playoffs, and he doesn't want to watch the... I feel sorry for you.
First off, LeBron was on the Heatles at that point in time. I can watch Miami basketball.
Throw a party every time the Pacers lose in the playoffs. Is that your thing?
Oh yeah, we do it every time. A lot of alcohol. There's a lot of alcohol.
That's just the life of being a Hawks fan.
It's the life of being a Pacers fan.
We'll get to that.
So
we'll get to that.
We'll get to the Pacers, but it's...
Oh, not the Pacers, but...
Well, yeah, and the Hawks, but it's... We follow some depressing teams, and you can pretend that you're on some high horse because LeBron James and Kyrie Irving carried you to the promised land, but outside of LeBron, Cleveland hasn't had a lot to cheer about. You have to admit that.
Oh, yeah.
So, all 3 of our team... Well, Adams got the most to cheer about with the Hawks because they have actually a decent history of players.
Oh, history, okay.
Yeah, history. But,
okay.
I mean, both the Cavs and the Pacers do have a history of quality players in all-time greats because that's the history of those teams. But I just really would like to see Mobley evolve. I want to see what he could do if he was a little bit stronger because he's built...
Mobley's scary.
It would be...
He can defend like anyone.
And that's the thing, but he can, but against a Jokic or against an Embiid, if they get position on him down low, he's not strong enough to stop them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about is that Cavs team, I already think they're a contender, not for the finals, but for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think I could see them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if they could overcome either of the big 2 in the East, but if Mobley...
Okay, hot take. I think they have a better chance against Boston than they do against Milwaukee.
I think it's close, because the problem is Boston is set up to be the ultimate foil to the Cavs as it currently is, because Boston has Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown, who are all NBA defenders and can easily keep up with Garland and Mitchell. Now, that is something that I will say about Mobley through watching him is it is very impressive to have a 7-footer who can guard 1 through 5. But again, I want to see him more able to slot into that 5 spot and just dominate the game because I think he can. I think if he were to get stronger and be able to incorporate that into his game, because we do see those little hook shots and those drop steps and they look amazing, and he can also stretch the floor. We could be talking about Mobley as a potential MVP candidate once the Cavs are truly contenders in a couple years, because they will be as long as this core sticks together. They're that good, and we know they're that good. And to say otherwise would be blind hatred that even my Indiana blood won't allow. But that is all I've got to say on the Cavs.
They're great. I love it.
They will be great. They're
great. They're great.
Only thing
So
I would
we're gonna-
have to add to the Cavs is that Kevin Love's contract.
I don't mind it.
It's over. It's basically over. Like, we're
He's-
probably going to move him in the offseason.
I don't like.
It's a 1-year deal in the offseason.
He's a great veteran piece to have as a locker room guy. So I think you need those locker room guys on those young teams because I don't want to say it because they might be one of our lists, but we're seeing what happens with the Houston Rockets and young players when they don't have veterans to lean on and kind of hold them accountable.
True.
Because if I got the Rockets next week, we'll talk about that when we get to the Rockets. But going to Adam, your final pick is, or your final team is the Pacers.
Yes. And
Good, sir. I win in the playoffs.
And for them, I think it's very simple. Just get Hallie and Turner and Mathurin some help on defense. They need help on defense and rebounding. That seems to be their biggest struggle. They've got, like you pointed out earlier, they've got 4 people averaging 18 a game. They're good on scoring. They don't need any.
Yeah, they're one of the better offenses in the league.
So get somebody to help Tyrese take a break on defense, so he can relax a little more on defense, so he can use that for offense.
See, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think as a Pacers fan, my Christmas wish list for the Pacers is either to extend or trade Turner, which we're hearing today. There was a rumor earlier that the Pacers were talking to the Hawks about John Collins and are telling teams that Turner is no longer available because they're trying to extend him. So that might be sooner rather than later. I think he's earned it. I don't know if the fix for this team or what's going to make them contenders is more defense. I think a lot of it has to do with development. Chris Duarte has missed most of the season. He is a plus defender for sure, and he can guard those 1 through 3. So
they just move him down to the D League?
No, he's been hurt. He's been hurt all season. So if they did relegate him, it's a conditioning assignment. But he's more than capable of playing, so that's not an issue. It's just whether or not he'll come back anytime this season. And being realistic, the Pacers are 3-4 years away from being legitimate contenders.
Being realistic is the only thing the Pacers are good.
Being realistic, 3 or 4 years away from contending. The team is built for the future as long as we continue to draft well, because ever since Kevin Pritchard took over, the team has been drafting significantly better. Rick Carlisle is the best coach the Pacers have had in a decade plus, and Herb Simon is about to turn the reins over to his son, and his son is more willing to spend money, so I don't necessarily think the Pacers' wish list should be anything more than just development of the pieces they have right now and hoping for the strength of schedule, because the Pacers have one of the harder schedules for the remainder of the season, pushes them down in the draft so they get a better pick.
Okay, yes.
Because Isaiah Jackson is a plus defender. Jalen Smith is a plus rebounder. I think you don't want to improve the team too much right now. I think you want to continue to develop and push down in the standings and get ready for that future.
Chris Duarte is in the G League right now for rehab. So that way they
so
can
it's a
play.
conditioning assignment. Yeah, it's a conditioning assignment. But once he's back, he's a great defender. He's going to hit his shots. He's going to take some of the burden off of Hallie and Matherin to go out and shoot lights out every night. He's not going to score 20 a game, but it's definitely a good return. But I don't know. What have you got to say about the Pacers? Angelo, I'm so excited to hear it.
I mean, the Pacers, are doing Pacer things. They're setting themselves to lose to the Cavs in the playoffs in the future. Normal, everyday Pacer stuff. It's nothing that I'm not already used to.
Yeah, so I don't have anything else to add to the Pacers.
Neither do I.
So
Even though they need it.
Angelo has been chomping at the bit all night for this moment. And so that's all the time we've got for this week, everybody.
So we'll talk to you later, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe.
Okay,
Wow.
Hold on. Do I have alcohol? Go ahead, Angelo. Start your power trip.
No, please. Get your alcohol. Take a sip. Enjoy. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you, because I've never gotten you on record, is Trae Young to you Steph Curry light? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. I just want to make sure. We're on the same page.
Can I add one thing can I add one thing to that? He is
before I go on my diatribe. Yes. Go ahead.
He is Steph Curry light, but he is Steph Curry without the IQ of Steph Curry.
We're going to get into that.
I don't hold on time because I don't necessarily think that's fair. I think that Steph Curry takes some dumb shots. It's just he hits them.
They go, yeah.
No, I think that they have similar IQs. I just think that Steph is a way better shooter. He's the best shooter of all time.
Yeah, hands down.
Way better, as I'm about to get into.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying, like... when I say Steph Curry, like, I don't mean Trae Young is, like... Oh, he's just below Steph Curry. No, he's way below Steph Curry. It's just... It's a very similar play style.
Man, no.
Would you disagree that they play a very similar style of game? Ignoring stats, do they or do they not play a very similar style of game?
Do not even in the closest sometimes. Trae Young likes to drive too much.
Curry likes to drive a lot.
Curry also likes to drive out. Okay, so let me take you back 2 years.
2 years.
To Philadelphia. Philadelphia. They won that series. Trae Young gets amazing praise for it. They beat the 76ers in 7. So I went back and I looked at Trae Young's stats versus Philly. And this is what he did in their wins. Not the losses. This is what he did in their wins.
Mm-hmm.
The first game 1, 11 for 23, 4 for 11 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's not terrible, that's not great. Their next win, 8 for 26, 3 for 11 from 3. He's getting credit for this. 8 for 26, 3 for 11 from 3. He really went off that game, let me tell you. Game 5 in their next win, 10 for 23, okay, 2 for 6 from 3. The Game 7 that they won, 5 for 23, 2 for 11 from 3. And he gets credit for this. He gets credit for this win. This was so bad. Ben Simmons still hasn't recovered. Ben Simmons, after losing to the Atlanta Hawks. Oh my God. Are you serious? That didn't catch? None of that caught? Did I disconnect?
No, you're still
Okay.
going. There, you briefly cut out for us, very split second. Like, we got the whole message.
5 for 23, 2 for 11. Ben Simmons still has not recovered. Ben Simmons has become a shell of himself after he locked up Trae Young, and they lost the series. So, let's go to Miami now. Miami, they got demolished. I couldn't find, there was one win, I didn't even bother looking it up. They got demolished against Miami. Here's what Trae Young, and this is the last playoffs. 1 for 12, 0 for 7 from 3. That was the first game they lost. The second game that they lost. Actually, no, they won this one. This is the game they won. 10 for 20, 2 for 10 from 3, but with 10 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
The next game, 6 for 14, 2 for 6 from 3. And then, the 2 games to lose it, back to back. 3 for 11, 3 for 10 from 3, 2 for 12, 0 for 5 from 3, with a PER of 5! A PER of 5! This man has been... This man, unless you want to say it's going to be DeJounte Murray and the Atlanta Hawks, this team is not going anywhere in the playoffs.
So can I interject?
To Atlanta? No, I'm finished. What my gift to Atlanta would be a time machine to go back to June 21st, 2018, and never trade Cam Reddish or Luka Doncic for Cam Reddish and Trae Young. There you go. What do you want to say?
I'm going to interject first. So first off, your full disclosure, you're talking about 2 years ago. Right?
4 years ago.
No.
I'm talking about the stats from the games he was just listing off.
That was last year. That was last year and 2 years ago. The Philly series was 2 years ago. The Miami series was last year.
So we're talking about a time when Trae was 21 and 22. Just full disclosure here, right? We're talking about.
That's all. That's his history. That's his history.
Right, but when you're evaluating young talent, if you are only looking at their stats, you're gonna suffer from some hubris because you're not paying attention to how they're playing. You're not paying attention to what they're doing. You're when you yell, your mic kind of cuts out. So
is a PER of 5 not bad?
PER of 5 is terrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Thank you.
And he had that for one game?
No, that was the series.
So
that was the series against Miami.
Because Trae Young likes to drive too much.
My man.
So
over half his shots are from three in these games.
Yeah, but then at least 33% is from the paint.
So that was in Trae Young's second season in the NBA. LeBron James had a game with a 3 PER. If you're only looking at stats, you're not seeing the whole picture. And that's the point I've always tried to make to you, because you will look at stats and think you found some golden answer, some grandiose thing that's going to prove everything wrong. If a system has failed and is broken down and you're chucking at bad shots, you're not going to hit them. So unless you're actually watching those games, it's a hard truth to swallow that you're not seeing the whole picture. I could find any player, whether it's LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, Trae Young. Obviously, these are all not in the same ballpark, but you can find any bad stretch of games from any of them. It's part of the point of being an NBA player is you're not always going to be at the top of your game.
This is the playoffs when everything is on the line, and
right.
This is what I have for him.
Is basketball a game of runs or not?
Yes.
Is basketball a game about getting hot at the right time or not? Some of these things
Generally.
you can't control. And I don't... When you're talking about Trae Young's first appearance in the playoffs, or his second appearance in the playoffs, I don't care about that. I'm sorry, I just don't, because nobody has a good first showing in the playoffs. Unless you're an all-time great. And I don't think Trae Young is an all-time great. I don't think he's going to be an all-time great. What I do think is he's a very high-quality NBA player.
I do not think...
With hindsight, would I rather have Luka Doncic or Trae Young?
Please.
Absolutely. I would rather take Doncic 10 times out of 10.
Okay.
But, that said, if I've got Trae Young, I'm not disappointed. I have Trae Young.
Would be.
I have a great player. Would I rather have Luka Doncic or Ja Morant? I would rather have Luka, but I'm not mad that I've got Ja Morant, and I'm not mad if I'm the Hawks if I've got Trae Young. He's, as his name says, he's still really young. He's still going to be learning, and as we've acknowledged, shooting is a skill that develops over your career. We know he can shoot from deep, we know he can get open, and we know he can shoot. This season, so last season they had a coach fired because of the system, and this season they have Nate McMillan coaching. And as I've already discussed, Nate McMillan, not a great offensive coach, not even close to a great offensive coach. Do I think it was immature what Trae Young did, staying home instead of coming to the game when he was healthy? No, that was a terrible look from someone that's supposed to be the leader of that team.
Yep.
But in terms of his performance, I don't have a problem with any of it. Do I want him to be better? Yes, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, the Hawks would be better if they didn't have Trae Young, because they wouldn't be.
No.
I don't think...
Though, with Angelo, I think the best thing they could have done was not make the trade.
Absolutely.
But that's hindsight.
Absolutely.
So. There you go.
That's playing a game of what ifs, and that's infinite. Because would they even have drafted Luka? Who knows?
They did.
Did they actually draft him, or was that?
No,
yes, they did.
They drafted him and then traded him later on.
Okay, so they traded him later. It wasn't a draft and trade immediately. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Well, does Luka become the same player? Does Trae become the same player? Are we talking about the fact that, oh, they should have made that trade when they could have got Trae Young? We don't know. Hindsight is useless. That is a pointless argument to make. I do not, if I am the Hawks, I'm not upset at having Trae Young, because even if Trae Young is not as good as 30 other players in the league, I do think he's probably a top 30 player right now. I think he's probably closer to top 20. I'm not mad having that. Yes, he is a turnstile on defense. And yes, he's got some attitude issues. But he's still a really good NBA player, and I'm not going to be mad at having him. I'm not going to say we would be better without Trae Young.
I don't think the Atlanta Hawks will be a championship contending team if Trae Young is the best player. So you better get used to saying DeJounte Murray and the Hawks.
That's a different point, because I don't know if I disagree with that point. Will they be a championship team if he's the best player?
No.
I don't know, because he's not Steph Curry. But one of the best 2 or 3 players on the team? Absolutely. Because he is someone that can shoot the ball, and he is someone that is a playmaker. Because his playmaking is better than his shooting ever was. I think last night, just off the top of my head, didn't he average like 16? Or didn't he score, or didn't he get 16 assists? And you conveniently, and we can play the tape back in case I missed it, you conveniently never were talking about any of his assist numbers during any of that spiel about how he played. But he's currently averaging 10 for the season.
16, yes, is what he had yesterday.
16, the game before he
against
played.
the Magic, where they lost, yes.
The game before that, 14. The game before that, 9. He is an elite playmaker. There's more to the game than just shooting. Shooting is an integral part of it, for sure. But what he brings to the table as a complete player is a valuable player. And as one of the best players on the team, not the best player of the team, but one of the best players of the team, that is a positive to that team. You can say they want to go back and get Luka, yeah, but the teams that didn't draft Luka want Luka. It's an infinite game if you're playing what ifs, and I just don't think that's a fair assessment because I think Trae Young is a very competent and talented NBA player.
I don't like him.
I know you don't like him, but I think that you're blinded by your hate.
I don't know about that one either.
I
I think I am harshly objective about it.
I would not throw the term objective out there at all, but to each their own. If I was rebuilding a team and Trae Young was available, I would not want him as. I would. He makes the team better. Whether he's shooting well or not, he makes his teammates better, and that is valuable.
What do you mean? Weren't you just going on about how the supporting cat, not just now, but weren't you going on about how the supporting cat for the Hawks wasn't up to snuff even after they added DeJounte Murray?
No, I think that DeJounte Murray is a positive add, but I don't think that the supporting cast is the greatest. But I don't know how much of that is on the supporting cast and how much of it is on the fact that Nate McMillan is one of the worst coaches offensively in recent memory. He will not, so go watch a Nate McMillan coach team. And there's a few of them because he's been fired repeatedly. Go watch a Nate McMillan coach team and watch the fourth quarter and watch the first quarter. Just those 2 quarters. If the team is losing, they will be playing the exact same in the fourth quarter as they were playing in the first quarter. They will not make adjustments because Nate McMillan is not a great offensive coach. He's a stellar defensive coach and would be amazing as a defensive assistant coach. But that team is built to be offensive. They're supposed to get out, run and gun, and outscore their team. They're supposed to play defense by scoring 140. That's their defense, is you're challenging the other team to match you in points. They're not going to do that under Nate McMillan. No team is going to. So, yes, I think that Trae Young makes his teammates better, and I think that once Nate McMillan has been fired again, and they bring in someone
we'll lose in the playoffs again,
which would lead to Nate McMillan being fired, and a coach comes in that's going to take advantage of the incredible offensive talent that is on that team, we will be having a different conversation next year. You will still be hating on Trae because you're bringing up things that happened in his first season, in his first playoff appearance.
Ample size I have. But
What?
stop giving him credit and saying he's going off when he no. The 76ers lost that series. The Hawks did not win that series.
It's a little bit of both.
The 76ers absolutely lost that series.
Here, go and keep talking while I look something up because I want to see something.
I will say that in recent memory, the best coach we've had was Mike Woodson.
Woodson's a good coach.
I actually loved watching the Hawks when he was a coach.
Why is that?
He was just he knew how to get the players to play to their strengths, and he knew how to get everybody else to help with the weaknesses. Okay,
so I was absolutely right. So in that game, he shot 3 for 11. What you conveniently didn't mention was he had 18 assists. That's what I'm talking about when you're cherry-picking data instead of looking at the whole thing. You're trying to find something bad about Trae Young. So you're looking at one specific stat line instead of the whole picture, and you're not watching the game. You're not seeing the outcome of the game. What this is telling me from looking at the stats without watching the game is that Trae Young had a lot of gravity that game and was pulling a lot of people and creating a lot of open looks because he was out there. Most of those shots, if you watch them, are probably going to be end of the shot clock, the play broke down. But yeah, no, this is... I personally love seeing this because it proves me right. Because you were so focused on the 3 for 11, you didn't look at the rest of his stat line. Is 18 assists a great stat line? Is that a great number for assists?
Yes.
Absolutely. So why didn't we talk about that? Because we were so focused on one stat line. Look at the whole game. That series, he had 2 games with less than 10 assists. 2 games.
And the 76ers still lost that series. Ben Simmons still hasn't recovered. Ben Simmons is a shell of himself because of that series. Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So, Trae Young,
pretty overrated.
Absolutely not.
I just think he needs to choose better shots. That's my only thing.
That's a whole other thing. So, Trae Young has averaged 26 points and 9 rebounds in playoffs. Sit here and tell me 26 and 9 is a bad stat line. Tell me with a straight face. Tell me with a straight face that 26 and 9 is a bad stat line.
Did you mean 9 assists?
Huh?
You said 9 rebounds. Did you mean 9 assists?
9 assists, yes. 26 and 9 with 3.5 rebounds. Tell me, and 1.1 steals. Tell me this is a bad stat line.
A 5 PR is a pretty bad stat line. I'm just...
Tell me, I want you right now to, on record, tell me that 26 points and 9 assists per game with 3.5 rebounds, a steal, on 40%.
They got gentlemen swept by Miami.
Tell me.
And then the head coach got fired. And
Angelo.
now you brought in someone who you're blaming.
Angelo.
I'm just saying.
I want you to just say that 26 points and 9 rebounds is a bad stat line. I want you on the record saying that.
Trae Young has been bad in the playoffs, yes.
I want you to, on the record, say that 26 and 9 is bad. I want you to say that specifically.
Trae Young has been very inefficient.
No.
Shooting
Yes. I do not want you to say Trae. I want you to say 26 and 9 is a bad stat line. That is a bad player. Tell me that 26 and 9 is a bad player. Just no Trae Young.
Disappointing in the playoffs, yes or no?
You're proving me correct here. Because you won't say it, because then I can find players that you'll call good averaging worse than this. That's why I want you to do this. Tell me right now that 26 and 9 is a bad stat line.
Screw those. I mean, I'm just saying.
I just want you to say it.
Just saying, that's all I'm saying.
So you will not, on the record, say 26 and 9 is a bad stat line?
26 and 9 is a bad stat line when you have to chuck up a bunch of shots to get there and get to the free throw line. And most of them because you're
40%. That's 40% shooting. That's not chucking. That's not chucking. So
that's
say it. Say 26 and 9 is a bad stat line. Say it. That's what I thought.
We're going to be here all night.
So that's all I've got to say about the Hawks. What about you, Adam?
I've said all that I have to say. I think he needs to take smarter shots. I'm not disagreeing that he's a bad scorer. I'm not agreeing he's a good scorer. He is an elite playmaker. I will give you that.
He absolutely needs to develop some b-ball IQ.
Yes.
But he's also really young. But what we've seen from him, I'm not mad if I've got him. Like, again, would I rather have Luka? Absolutely. Anyone would. There's few players in the league I would rather have than Luka. Actually, I don't think there's a single player in the league I'd rather have than Luka because of Luka's age and talent.
Giannis?
What?
I said not even Giannis.
That would be the only one that would be close, and maybe Jason Tatum, but I just think that Luka has a more complete game. And he's so young. So I there's not like saying, oh, they could have had Luka, so that's a negative to Trae Young.
They
Like,
did have Luka. They did have Luka, and then trade
but
him for Trae Young.
hindsight, that's not. I'm just saying, there's no player that I would rather have than Luka, except like Giannis. You could make an argument for, but if I am the Hawks, I'm not mad that I have Trae because Trae is a great player. So I'm not. I won't play a game of what ifs, because if you're playing what ifs, it's never ending, because we can do that for any team at any point in time. Pacers, Kawhi Leonard. Any team that passed on Kawhi Leonard. The Cavaliers, if they actually got LeBron James help, we could play a what if for any team. That's endless and that's pointless. I just don't think that's a healthy way to look at it, and I think that with Trae Young, the Hawks have a great player, and they should be perfectly content to have him.
Yeah.
But he will develop.
He'd be perfect in a Pacers uniform.
He will develop
Good.
the skills that he needs. And if he doesn't, he's not a bust. Like, we know he's not a bust, so I'm content with how he is. I think that's all we've got in terms of our lists, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So is there anything else you guys want to cover tonight?
I have nothing.
I have something, but then I lost it, so just go on.
I think there's some rumors out there, but I ended up closing all my Twitter feeds. So, like, while we could talk about rumors and then something happens, like the day we release this, that would be pretty cool, but I don't necessarily think that's something that has to happen. And I feel like we've gone on for a while here, so I think I'm ready to wrap up if you guys are.
Yep.
I'm good.
All right, so thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for sticking through that fun final pick that was Angelo's. Join us next week. We're going to attempt to do the Western Conference, and I think the Western Conference is probably going to
less controversial. Yeah,
I think it's going to be less controversial, because really Angelo's the one that's going to force the controversy, and there's not much controversy to have out on the West right now. And then we'll get into some stuff as we get into the new year. We've got some plans in the works for ways to make this more fun. Mostly for us, but anyone that's listening, we do appreciate that you're listening. I don't know why you're listening, because we're still figuring this out, but if you're enjoying it, leave us a like, follow us, subscribe, whatever. What'd you say?
They're listening because they enjoy it, man.
And
Are we perfect? No. Are we getting it? Yeah. Yeah, we're progressing.
And
I think that it's definitely getting better. I think that just between the first episode and how we felt that first night recording, it's improving a lot. I think this is going to be the last time I talk about our progression, because we've talked about it in this episode and the last episode.
Yeah.
But it is a way for us to reflect, and I do still want, if you have any feedback, give it to us. We will read it and we will implement it if we agree with it. We're pretty adaptive, we're pretty receptive, and thanks for following us on this journey of midlife crises.
And we appreciate the follow, we appreciate the downloads, we appreciate you most of all.
Yeah, we're not making any money.
Apple. Do not appreciate Apple.
And we just lost any chance of being published on Apple. Thank you, Angela.
Glad. That just saved me a million headaches.
Beep that out, Adam.
I got you. I've already wrote it down on the edit list.
But join us next week. We're going to hit the Western Conference, and then, like I said, next year, so we're coming up to the end of December. Once we get into that first of the year, we're going to start making some announcements about plans for the future and starting down the road of the future. So thanks for joining us. See you next week.
Goodbye, everyone.